All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Between the Lines podcast. Um, Unfortunately, Michael isn't able to join us today as he is dealing with some personal problems, but that's not going to stop us from giving y'all the content and, talking ball. So I'm not going to waste too much time and, let's just get right into it. So, um, a lot of stuff happened overall throughout week 5 of, this NFL season. A lot of good games, a lot of blowouts, a lot of surprises. So there was a lot of things that, we need to talk about. And first on the agenda is the Denver Broncos beating the Philadelphia Eagles um, at on the road. Nonetheless, um, beating Philadelphia's undefeated streak at 4-0. Um, and this game was a pretty defensive siding for both teams. Both teams really, contributed contributed to um, on both sides of the ball, but more so on defense, limiting both teams to a certain amount of gains. Saquon Barkley only 6 carries for 30 yards, which is very, um, not him, not very like him. Only getting 6 carries, and you're Saquon Barkley. So if you're a Philadelphia Eagles fan, you're kind of wondering why weren't we giving him the ball more, other than 6 carries. Even if the run game wasn't there, you still have to feed him. You have to at least give him at least more than 10 touches. And 6 carries is just not their style of play. They're a run first team. They forced Jalen Hurts to step back and throw against this very good Broncos defense. Jalen Hurts dropped back 38 times. Um, 23 for 38, Jalen Hurts. On the day for 280 yards passing, 2 TDs. Um, so he had a okay game through the air, but back to what I was talking about. If they could have had some run game going along with it, maybe the game would have been turned out different. But that wasn't the case. Although Barkley didn't have a rushing touchdown, he did have a receiving touchdown. It came on a wiggle route, kind of, and Jalen Hurts put it right on the money to give the Eagles a score there. So that was Saquon's touchdown of the game. And then you also had guys on the receiving end like Devontae Smith. Obviously, we know what Devontae Smith can do as a receiver. A.J. Brown is pretty quiet throughout this game. Still really haven't had that breakout A.J. Brown game yet this year. This has been one of his quietest stretches so far as an Eagle um, in his career. So, we're still looking for that to kind of, get on point. And we're going to talk more about A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith here in a minute towards the end. But, I mean, the Broncos, I had them winning in my predictions, in my prediction video earlier this past week. I thought the Broncos had a really good chance to come in here and scrape one, on the road. I think they're a very talented team overall. They have the best chance to put up a fight with them, and they did. Patrick Surtain had a really good game. Obviously, was switching between Devontae and AJ throughout most of it, but I think the defense was playing really well. Obviously, held Saquon Barkley to 30 yards, so you're doing something right if that's the case. But also, Sean Payton. I mean, I feel like we have to give credit where credit's due. Um, Turning, this franchise around. When they drafted Bo Nix, took him to the playoffs. First year there with Nix. And now, coming to Philly, defending champs on the road. And, you beat them. You kind of building some confidence with this young team. So that's obviously something to look at and be excited about. Now you're 3-2 on the year. Um, Cortland Sutton obviously is one of Bo Nix's favorite targets. He's the number one guy. 8 catches for 99 yards. Really having his way against Philly. Um, and I wanted to point this out, but this team, this Broncos team, really reminds me of, the Texans from 2 years ago. Um, a young quarterback coming into the league, um, coming into a team that wasn't very good, and then all of a sudden putting them in the playoff picture right when he takes the helm of quarterback. I think Bo Nix is going to have a very good career in the NFL. And Michael said it before, he said it previously. He thought Bo Nix was one of the better quarterbacks coming out of his draft class. And I will say that I wasn't the biggest fan of him coming out. Obviously, you have the age gap. He's a much older quarterback coming out, so that's probably one of the reasons why I thought he wasn't gonna pan out as well, just because he was older. But now coming back and looking at it, I think he's gonna have a very good career. He's very sharp as a quarterback. He knows how to get the ball out in time with anticipation. His balls are always on the money. So I think he's going to be very good. And, going up against, this kind of test on the road and this early in the season, I think that shows to what type of team this Broncos team can be. Um, and their defense, had 6 sacks on the game. So when you're able to, get pressure like that and create those sacks, you're destined to win the game. Um, and so I think, overall, the Broncos did a really good job of controlling the ground game, and controlling and limiting Jalen Hurts to a certain degree. Um, but like I said, I feel like Barkley not being able to get as many carries and just not being able to have a effect on the game, with rushing the ball, I feel like that plays a big factor into this game and why they lost. But also, the Eagles had a chance at a Hail Mary attempt to win the game, potentially, but it ended up being like incomplete because of Devontae Smith and AJ Brown kind of both going at after the ball. Both of them had one goal in mind, and it caused them to not catch the ball at all, and the game was over after that. After the game, people are obviously saying, things about AJ Brown and, how he is as a um, teammate, and, the effort's not there at times, kind of saying, oh, this is a down year. I think AJ Brown is obviously isn't this isn't the AJ Brown that we're used to seeing, obviously. He's a much better player. But I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the amount of targets that he is unable to been getting throughout the past couple of weeks or what the case might be. But there's obviously some frustration within AJ Brown. We don't know exactly what that frustration is on, but we'll kind of see how in short, I'm not worried about Philadelphia at all. I think this is a good game for both sides. Obviously losing at home sucks, but as the defending champs. But this just shows that even though they lost, it's still a very competitive game. And they lost to a playoff team, so this isn't a bad loss. I would say if you're a Philadelphia Eagles fan, I think you still have some momentum. You just got to get Saquon involved next game, and I think you'll be fine. So um, just look out for that. Broncos, I think they're going up. I think they're gonna do very well this season. Obviously, both of their losses weren't bad losses at all. And we kind of talked about it earlier in the podcast before, but I think they're going to be fine. And this was a game that really had people like, okay, these guys can really compete with anyone. Um, and I feel very confident with that. And so Philadelphia going to 4-1, Broncos improving to 3-2 on the year. Next up, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers going on the road to face the Seattle Seahawks, and this was a game with just so much firepower in it. You had loads of talent at the receiver position. The quarterback position was very fun coming into this game. Both quarterbacks being former Carolina Panthers, and these are quarterbacks that revived their career with certain teams. Baker reviving his career here in Tampa, um, and Sam Darnold reviving his career in Minnesota, and then coming signing with uh, Seattle during the offseason. And so I feel like this was a game that just really showed, you know, their past teams like, hey, this is what you missed out on, and we're going to prove it. And this was also a battle of, Ohio State wide receivers, with Jackson Smith and the Jigba for Seattle and Emeka Ibuka, for Tampa. And I said coming into this game, Emeka was going to have a huge role with, still with Mike Evans out. And I think and, with the performance he had, 7 catches, 163 and a touchdown. I mean, there's a case, potentially for when Mike Evans comes back. Like, is there gonna be like a shift or something at the wide receiver position? Is Mike Evans still gonna, get a lot of the targets, or is he gonna take a lesser role? Emeka, the other guys, Ted Johnson, are they gonna get more involved and whatnot? I'm not saying, eliminate Mike Evans out of the offense, obviously. But is his role gonna decrease a little bit? Not having to rely on him as much now that you have a superstar at wide receiver like Emeka Ibuka. And this is a guy that was coming out of college that was like that was kind of going under the radar. Obviously playing alongside guys like Marvin Harrison Jr., Jeremiah Smith last year, and other, top talent at the wide receiver position. He was kind of on late first round mock boards, and then, Bucs snagged him. And, as a Panthers fan, having to play the Bucs twice a year, knowing that they, got another superstar wide receiver in Emeka Ibuka, and I've been a fan of him for a long time, going back to Ohio State. I really like his game. He's a smooth route runner, great hands. I think he's a great, phenomenal player. He's just having a great rookie season this year, and leading the Bucs to a 4-1 record. Um, and so it's really nice to see some good ball being played between both the quarterbacks and both Ohio State wide receivers. It was really just a fun game to watch. Looking back on it, Baker Mayfield had a phenomenal game, throwing the ball 29 for 33, only 4 incompletions. Very accurate, and that's something that you always want to see out of a quarterback. And this is going up against Mike McDonald uh, defense. This is someone who, you know, very much likes to scheme up, these different defensive packages, and Baker just he didn't seem flinched at all. He was very confident in his throws. He was very confident overall in this game. He had, there was a couple throws that really was like, he had that deep shot over to Emeka Buka, which was right on the money. If that throw was just a little bit underthrown, then that probably would have been picked or batted down, but it was right on the money. Emeka caught it for a touchdown in the back uh, of the end zone. And so that's just something that, we didn't see out of Baker Mayfield in his previous tenure with, Carolina, or, other, the Browns or something like that. He's very much improved as a pocket passer. And, we always knew he had the arm strength and the accuracy coming out of college, but we never really saw it. Um, we didn't see much of it as we're seeing now with Tampa, with him. And he's got his confidence back. And that's what makes Baker Mayfield such a great player. He plays with so much confidence that, even a bad game won't, deflect him or anything like that. So I think, this game really was, a testament to showing, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are one of the best teams in the league. I think I think they're one of the top 3 teams in the league right now at the moment. They just have talent all around. on both, sides of the ball. Um, Obviously, their loss against Philadelphia, show that, they, they're beatable, but I mean, they still made it a close game regardless, even after a terrible start, um, from the start. Um, and now here going on the road in Seattle, was really, a nice thing to see if you're a Bucs fan, beating Seattle 38-35. And Levante David, big time veteran, making a huge play, intercepting Sam Darnold to put the Bucs in scoring position, um, for them to hit a field goal. And Levante Davis is just one of those guys that, he's going to come up in those clutch moments, whether it's a tackle, a fumble, or an interception. You know, I think he's one of the key vocal points of that defense. And, if you're a Bucs fan, you're just so happy to have him and whatnot. But, talking about Sam Darnold now, he also had a good game, 28 for 34, only 6 incompletion passes. So between Baker and Sam, only 10 total incomplete passes throughout this game, which is just crazy to see in today's NFL. Um, 341 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, and obviously that late game interception, that he threw. But I mean, outside of that, I thought he played, really great. His accuracy has really improved overall throughout his career, and it showed last year in Minnesota. And, he's obviously improving, with the weapons that he has now here in Seattle, like Cooper Kupp, JSN, Kenneth Walker. They have a couple tight ends on Seattle's roster that I really liked. And last game, I thought they played well. Seattle's a very fun team, to watch. They have talent everywhere. They have a young defense. You know, guys playing hard on both sides. So this was just a really even matchup, and it really played well for both sides. Obviously, with them losing on a field goal, sucks, but that's just what it is. And Seattle had played a really good game for the most part. Um, and JSN, 8 catches, 132 yards, and a touchdown. Like I said, a battle of the Ohio State wide receivers. Um, and this game has everyone saying, like, who's wide receiver you and whatnot. And my personal opinion, it's always been Ohio State. Yeah, you got guys like Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase coming out of LSU, Odell, all them guys. But it's always Ohio State producing these wide receivers year in and year out. They got Jeremiah Smith coming, in a couple of years into the NFL. And then Carnell Tate, will be in the NFL soon. Um, so, they got guys. And this was just, another example of, Ohio State producing elite NFL talent. Um, and it was really fun to watch, just seeing these guys play, and all that type of stuff. Just want to give a quick shout out to Derek Young. He also had a couple big plays in this game. He had a catch for 36 yards, um, and he had a couple big kick returns to set up Seattle in good field position a couple times. Wide receiver out of Lenore Ryan University here in North Carolina. That's pretty local here for us. And you're just seeing a guy, here in the area, you know, ball out on Sundays in the NFL. Just wanted to shout out that. But also important note to from this game as well. Jalen Milroe also took a snap in this game. I think they were trying to I'm assuming they were trying to go for a speed option to the left side. He pitched it, but I think the running back was too in front, and he pitched it back, um, behind him too far. So some miscommunication there. But that led to a fumble, and which led to a scoring drive for Tampa. And after that, we didn't see Jalen Miller for the rest of the game. So I wanted to point that out. So I don't know what Seattle was kind of thinking on there. I feel like you could have done that easily with Sam Darnold, but because obviously when you have Jalen Miller, you're kind of thinking automatically he's going to run the ball. It's not going to drop back and pass because that would make sense. But I don't know. I feel like you could have done that with Sam Darnold and everything would have been fine. But I don't know, just an error right there that Seattle had that played a part in this game and whatnot. But overall, very fun, high scoring game. Uh, I expect both teams to have great seasons moving forward. Um, I don't know who plays who next, um, but both teams, actually I can check right here. Um, Tampa Bay goes back home to play San Francisco, who's coming off a win against the LA Rams on Thursday night, prime time last week. And then Seattle's going on the road to face Jacksonville, who just upsetted the Kansas City Chiefs last night on Monday Night Football. So those would be some good games to look out for, but we'll get into that here later into our predictions after these next games that I will be talking about. Our next game being the New England Patriots versus the Buffalo Bills. Sunday Night Football. Stephon Diggs returning to Buffalo. That was kind of the story coming in. How is he going to play against his former team? And will Drake Maye adapt to this road environment on prime time against Buffalo? Undefeated coming into this one. Um, and I think New England really surprised a lot of people. I think, you know, Drake May is establishing himself as a young star quarterback. Um, 22 for 30, 273 yards passing, no interceptions. Um, he really has all the glimpses shown. You know, he has the arm talent like Justin Herbert. He can make throws, you know, rolling out to his right. He can make throws at, all these different type of angles. He can run like Josh Allen. He has the size to do so. And that's just what makes him so dynamic. And he's only a rookie. So, um, I'm sorry, not a rookie, but in his second year, seeing the improvements that he has made, in this type of environment with um, against the Buffalo Bills, having Diggs also helps his development as well. Diggs had 10 catches on 12 targets for 146 yards. Didn't get the end zone, which I'm sure he would have wanted to do, on the road against his former team. But they got the win. That's what mattered the most. Um, and I think, and I've said it before when we were talking about New England a couple podcasts ago. Um, about New England when we were playing them, Carolina. I said their defense was really good, and it really showed out this game as well. Limiting Josh Allen to, not having him use his legs as much to affect the game. There really wasn't a running game for Buffalo this game. So, obviously Allen had to focus more throwing the ball and, into these tight coverages that New England has. Dalton Kincaid had a pretty good game, 6 catches, 108 yards. Dalton Kincaid's always been pretty reliable um, for, this Buffalo offense. Both their tight ends, really, for being honest. Um, with Dawson Knox and Kincaid, you have options there, but he had a pretty good game. Josh Allen, 22 for 31, thrown for 253, 2 touchdowns and an interception. Um, and that interception was kind of just like straight down. It I wouldn't say it was a bad interception, but it was a turnover nonetheless. And it's just overall. this game really was surprising to people because coming in, New England didn't have a good record last year. And then now here on the road, this is pretty convincing win to get them put, on the national spotlight, just seeing what they can do as a team. Um, and so I feel like that was really an important, you know, thing for them, having this kind of momentum going forward. In week 6, New England, I believe they play New Orleans Saints on the road. New Orleans is coming off of a win against New York at home. Keelan Moore getting his first win of the season with the Saints. They'll be welcoming Drake Maye into Louisiana next week or this week. So we'll see how that goes. But overall, this game was really fun to watch, defensively. Seeing, Diggs kind of have this breakout game against them. Um, and he had a good game against Carolina, the week prior. So really back-to-back weeks of having Stephon Diggs, kind of lead the charge offensively and, you know, do what he does. And then finally, talking about Carolina and the Miami Dolphins. This was a game that coming in, I felt like, without knowing Tyreek Hill wasn't there, I feel like the confidence level was there. I feel like we had a pretty good chance at winning the game. Having Tyreek Hill been able to play, it probably would have been down, knowing that this team struggles with speed. This defense struggles with containing speed guys. So just imagine if Tyreek Hill was on one side, Jalen Waddle on the other. The Dolphins would have been at full strength on offense. Would have been a lot of pressure on this Panthers defense, and to start the game, that's really even though they didn't have Tyreek Hill, the Dolphins were still playing good. 17-0. After a couple Carolina turnovers, Bryce Young really struggled to start the game. He had a questionable fumble. He was rolling to his left, just dropped the ball. Miami recovered it quickly. And then the next possession after that, he was looking for Xavier Legette on a crossing route, threw those in the triple coverage, and has an interception right there. And at that point, you have the stadium booing, just asking for Andy Dalton to come in. I heard a couple people, um, and myself included. I was questioning Bryce Young, thinking what he was what's going on. Um, and it was really, just tough to watch. And at that point, you're kind of thinking to yourself, like, here we go again. It's going to be the same thing like last week, just at home. Um, but then after that, the defense really improved, um, holding Miami to only, 19, 16 yards rushing? Yeah, 19 yards rushing, which is kind of insane to think about considering they were one of the worst rushing defenses in the league last year. So and then holding Devon Achane to only limited touches, limited yards. It's really a positive for this defense. Um, I feel like they struggled containing tight ends all year. If we're being honest, I told Michael that Evero has really struggled scheming against tight ends. It's happened pretty much in every single game besides Atlanta, but you know, and that happened with Darren Waller. Darren Waller had like 5 receptions for like 78 yards and a touchdown. But that was in the first half of the game. Then after that, they made adjustments, and it really got going. This is the second time this season that they've only allowed 7 points in the second half, but this time they ended up winning 27-24, and this was also the first time in a while that Carolina has won 2 games in their first five. Even though that's not necessarily that good, it's still better than where we were at last season, considering we didn't get our second win until like week 8 or week 7. Yeah, week 8 or week 9, something like that. So, having, this, come from behind win under your belt, you know, has a lot of confidence, but can we keep it going? Can we keep the consistency going? I mean, I was not, obviously I was excited, with the win. It's always nice to win at home. But then again, I'm trying not to be that type of fan that is going to just say, oh, we're going to the playoffs. We're going to beat these teams and what that. This team has not shown me at all that we can be a consistent team, a consistent franchise, and lead to multiple wins. All I'm saying is that we have Dallas this week, and I'm just going to spoil it early. I have Dallas beating us at home. And that's not me saying, oh, I don't think they can win this game just because, they can't. But because I think this team just hasn't shown any consistency whatsoever, and I think that's a fair statement to make. Like, we haven't won back-to-back games, in a minute, and it's just hard. Um, kind of it's just hard trying to get behind a team that can't win back-to-back games, can't build some sort of consistency. And when you can't build consistency, it's really hard to, get behind. But I mean, yeah, having the win come from behind win was nice, but that's just what, that game is out now. Now we're thinking about Dallas. Um, and they just beat, the New York Jets 37-22, on the road. And granted, it was the Jets. Like, they're not a very good team right now at the moment. But we haven't had the best of luck against Dallas, the past couple years. Um, especially at home. Last year we got blown out by them at home. Um, and so, this year, even though their defense has taken a step back, their offense is still pretty good even without CD Lamb. Now that George Pickens is kind of finding his groove and finding his role, um, with CD Lamb out. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. I think it will be interesting to watch because in past matchups, Dallas's defense has always been good, but this week, it looks average. It looks, decent. It looks all right. It looks okay. I think we have a fair shot to, make some plays. But that's if Dave Canales wants to make plays. If Dave Canales wants to win this game and wants to beat these teams, he has to come out of his boots and call these plays, be aggressive because that's just not what he is, going up against these teams. Obviously we saw against, Kansas City and Philadelphia last year, but we were already in a hole. We were already having a losing record, all that. So really you was just trying anything. But now that we're 2-3, not a terrible record, but and then you have a home game against Dallas, you feel like you can do something here. Like, let's start being more aggressive, starting now. You know, because when I look at other offenses like Buffalo, uh, even Houston, LA, like their offense, like it feels like all of the you know, all those teams, like it just seems so smooth. Nothing's too complicated. But with Carolina, it just feels like there's so many limitations that, it just feels weird when you look at Carolina compared to like other offenses. It feels like the things that Carolina does, you know, or no, the things that all the other teams do, the simple stuff, feels like Carolina does at a much lower level. Like, we don't take as many deep shots as other teams, even though we have deep threat guys that can take the top off. We don't do that at all. so that limits to what we can do on offense a little bit. We have Ted McMillan, who's a deep threat guy, go up and go get it. But there's only one play against Miami where he had a gain for 29, but that was it. Really didn't do anything else after that. And even when we did take a deep shot to Xavier to get picked off. I mean, Bryce Young also has to be better throwing the ball downfield. He showed it last year. There was a game against Tampa. He showed it last year, threw it into over the top of the defense to Adam Thielen in the end zone, which was a pretty good ball. But I feel like Dave Canales again, consistency comes with consistency. Can Dave Canales call the game in a variety of ways? And that's just me, saying what I feel like we have to improve on a little bit if we want to be taken serious. Um, because right now I feel like our offense is just it's just very basic. Even though we won, it's very basic. And I feel like our offense can be much more than that, given our talent. Because I know we have the talent. It's there. Dave just has to put it together. Um, and I don't want to keep saying that every week because I know it's there. And so I feel like, yeah, I'm just going to leave it at that. But also, I'm going to give credit to where credit's due. Rico Dowdle coming into the starting spot with Chuba Hubbard out with a calf injury. You know, he had the best game of his career. 23 carries, 206 rushing yards, and a touchdown. 9 yards per carry. That's almost a first down every time he touched the ball. And so whenever you get that kind of contribution out of your running back, you're going to be winning games. And you're going to be, in games. And so having that kind of production out of Rico Dowdle was huge to, help set the comeback. First play coming out of halftime, Michael was like, we got to establish the run game. Boom. We're already past midfield and, we're in close to red zone territory or we're in it at that point. And, that was kind of us setting, the stage for, what was, coming. But, just stuff like that. Like if we can get production out of Rico Dowdle and Chuba Hubbard more, because so far, before this game, there wasn't much uh, out of our running backs. Run game was very stale, in my opinion. But this game, really, by far, was our best rushing game. O-line played amazing. Cade Mays. Cade Mays is very good at center. And Michael has always said, you know, Cade Mays has been his guy at center. He's just a natural fit. Austin Corbett was never a fit at center. He was just a guy just to be there because had already gotten rid of Bradley Bozeman and we didn't have an extra guy. So we just moved Austin Corbett to center and got him playing the snaps there. But Cade Mays played well this game with some great blocking up front. So really credit to the O-line there. Um, you know, Dowdle, he said in the press conference after the game, he's hyped to go up against Dallas this week. Told him to buckle up. We'll see. We'll see. I'm tired of the talk, man. I really just want to see this, production on the field. Like, I'm really not trying to, even though we won, I'm not trying to, get our hopes up. Like, I think, we just have to show it. We just have to show it. One game, cool, we won. Let's do it again. If we can only win one game and then lose the next game after that, oh, we win another one. Like, there's no consistency there. So that's really my whole take on this Carolina team. Can we build consistency on a consistent basis? So that's just really what I'm at right now with this team. Even though we won, I'm cool about that. But also Bryce Young, he has to fix the turnovers. If Bryce Young wants to be taken seriously as a quarterback in this league, if he wants to stay a starting quarterback in this league, he has to minus his turnovers. It's like a game doesn't go by where he doesn't have a turnover. Um, 19 for 30, 198, two touchdowns, and an interception and the fumble. That's two turnovers right there that both, were crucial to start this game, which put us in this position of going down 17-0. So, I just feel like if Bryce really just has to be more efficient when he has the ball in his hands. Um, he has to be more careful with the ball, knowing, just what to do and whatnot. Because, he's already limited due to his size, but, his hands are like really small as well. So if he can just minus the turnovers, I think he'll be fine. I think we'll put us in a better position if he can do that. Um, there's just times where he will do the dumbest stuff possible, and then the next possession he'll make a incredible throw, like the one on fourth down where he was rolling to his right. He had about three defenders in his face, and then he made like a sidearm, like kind of throw to Ted to to Ted McMillan, converting on fourth down. So, that was cool to see. But again, just got to do it on a more regular basis. Um, but I know the talent's there with him. I know it is. It's just it's got to be some other thing holding him back. But we're already in year three, so we just gotta, because those turnover issues should already be gone by now, but it's still been going on for the same 3 years. So I don't know, man. That's just, my thought on Bryce throughout this game. Even though he was a big part of leading us to our this comeback, he did make the right throws, going forward. Um, which he did put the ball were in the right places. T Mac had 6 catches for 73 yards, which was good for him. And it's clear as cut he's our number one guy. He had 8 targets on the game. Led the team again. It's just nice knowing that we have a wide receiver one in T Mac, but it's also like T Mac he's the guy to get Bryce going early in the games, but then going towards late, it's like he's a non-factor as well. Like he gets all his targets and catches, early in the first half of the games, but then in the second half, it's like he's not there anymore. So I don't know if that's just me, just looking too deep into it, but I'm not gonna critique T Mac too much. That's just he had a good game. Uh, XL returned from injury. He had a couple catches. He had a really good touchdown catch in the back of the end zone, which was a really good ball from Bryce Young. Like I said, uh, he put the ball into the right spot. For the most part in this game, leading XL for that touchdown. And that kind of got everyone going in the stadium. Really, hyped everyone up. But for me at that point, I was like, I think we were down like 10 points even with that touchdown. So I was like, I wasn't trying to get too excited, but at the same time, it was good to see XO, get that first touchdown of the year. With his, even with his mistakes that he's had this year, his struggles. So that was pretty, nice to see. Jimmy Horn made his season debut this week. Um, he had a crucial clutch fourth down catch, um, which really set us up to go ahead and score late. So that was a crucial catch. I think it was down in the 3 minute mark of the game. Um, and this, this defense was really good as well. The second half of the game, like I said, our run defense, having Derek Brown back has been so key. Because I feel like if we didn't have Derek Brown, this would probably be the worst rushing defense in the league. Um, and we also got to the quarterback this game. We had multiple sacks. We were dead last in the NFL for sacks, coming in this game with 2. And I think we had like 2 or 3 sacks this game. So that was really a plus, you know, getting after the quarterback. Um, Nick Squirton was also the highest rated PFF rookie in the NFL. This past week he had a very solid game as well. Yeah, I mean our defense was good this game. and that's nice to see, but also it's also we shouldn't have to, you know, be down 17-0 in order to have, these like come from behind wins. Like, we shouldn't have that. Um, and we don't want that. So, and as y'all can see, it's pretty hard doing, a podcast by myself. I didn't think it was going to be that hard, but so I'm kind of like struggling with my words a little bit because normally this would be where Michael will step in a little bit. But yeah, um, that's really, what I have for this game. Hopefully, it continues. And even though I have Dallas winning, obviously I don't want that to happen. But at the same time, I'm trying to stay realistic here. Um, but also try to stay a little bit positive. So that's really what I have to say in regards to the Carolina Panthers and the Dolphins. Um, and yeah, we'll be heading into our predictions now coming in. It'll be short. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. But, week 6 now um, of the NFL season this week, we got Philadelphia and New going on the road, taking on the New York Giants. This is going to be an upset for me. I think New York is going to skim by with this win. It's not going to be a blowout win. I think it's going to be a close game. I think still having, even though they lost to the Saints, I think still having that, having Jackson Dart in at quarterback, I think is going to help, lead the Giants. Even though it's asking a lot out of them, but who doesn't love an upset pick? I mean, all right. I'm taking the New York Giants on prime time at home, beating Philadelphia. Next up, we have Denver taking on the New York Jets. Um, sorry, Aaron Glenn, going 0-6. Denver is gonna roll past New York on this one on the road. They did it last week against Philadelphia. I think they'll do it again against the Jets. Seattle going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jacksonville coming off a pretty impressive win against the Chiefs, which I didn't expect coming. But they're a really good team in the AFC. This is going to be a very high scoring game, I think. Both offenses are really good, but give me Seattle on the road for the upset. I think everyone's going to be looking at Jacksonville and expecting a little bit too much out of them, considering that they beat the Chiefs. And I think Seattle's just going to do what they do, and they'll beat the Jacksonville Jaguars on the road. Los Angeles Chargers going against the Miami Dolphins. Give me the Chargers. Take and beating Miami here. Miami blowing that 17-0 lead to us. Kind of derailed them a little bit. Give me the Chargers on the road. Los Angeles Rams going against the Baltimore Ravens. Ravens, already a depleted team, got blown out at home against Houston. I think this will be close to the same. I think the Rams will get this one easily. Arizona against the Colts. Give me the Colts at home. New England versus New Orleans. Give me New England on the road. It's cool to see the Saints get their first win of the year against the Giants, but I think New England is just having too much confidence right now in themselves. I think they'll handle this one on the road. Pure to 4-2. Cleveland going up against Pittsburgh, divisional rival game. Dylan Gabriel is going to make his second career start, going up against his Pittsburgh defense. That's just very rough on any rookie quarterback. So give me Pittsburgh on the road. At home, I mean. Tennessee versus Las Vegas Raiders. Raiders haven't looked very good at all. Neither has Tennessee, but they got their first win against the Cardinals this past week in a very weird game, to say the least. But I'm actually going to take the Tennessee Titans here in this game. I think they're going to win 2 straight. Brian Callahan, even though he's not a very good head coach, I think they'll somehow find a way to win this game on the road. Geno Smith hasn't played very good at all this year as well. Leads the league in interceptions. Probably will take the over on him to throw an interception this game. So let's do that. We're just going to take the Tennessee Titans here. San Francisco against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Not sure if Brock Purdy's going to be playing this game. But if he is not, Mac Jones will be starting he had a good game against the Rams in prime time. But overall, I think Tampa Bay is just a much better team. I think they'll handle business. It might be a close game, but I like my chances with Tampa Bay in a close one here against San Francisco, regardless if who's in that quarterback for them. Cincinnati versus Green Bay. Give me Green Bay. Cincinnati is just an awful team at the moment without Joe Burrow. Their offense is so limited. It's not even funny. Even though they just traded for Joe Flacco today, as of the making of this video, and I'm not sure if a 40-year-old Joe Flacco is going to save them, but it gives them a better chance than Jake Browning. But still, give me Green Bay. Detroit versus KC, Sunday Night Football. This is a very good game. The Chiefs are struggling big time. They won 2 straight before this past Monday, but even though it was a pretty close game, I think the Chiefs are one of the better 2 and 3 teams in the league at the moment. But Detroit's just playing really good right now offensively. So it's kind of a toss-up right here at the moment. A lot of people will say Detroit, but give me KC at home. I think they'll sneak this one by. Buffalo versus Atlanta. We have 2 Monday Night Football games. Buffalo versus Atlanta on the road, coming off a loss against New England. Atlanta coming off of a bye week, refreshed, re-energized. I like Buffalo. I think they're going to bounce back. I don't see them losing 2 straight, especially to Atlanta. Chicago versus the Commanders. This is a rematch of last year's Hail Mary game. Pretty interesting to say the least. I don't think this game deserves a primetime game, for being honest, but give me the Commanders to get this one on at home. Uh, yeah, I'm not gonna spend too much time on that. But yeah, that's it for this podcast this week. Again, no Michael in this week due to some personal problems, but it's not his fault. And so that's it for Between the Lines. Um, Sorry for the delay on the upload. Had some confusion problems last night. But we'll be back again next Monday um, to recap Week 6 and everything else around the NFL. So thank you guys so much for watching, and please follow us on our Twitter account, BTL WDM on Twitter, and follow us on TikTok as well. I'll leave links in the description, so y'all can go ahead and check those out. Follow us on there so y'all can keep in touch. That's it. I'm out. We'll see y'all later next week.